Hi there, welcome to my channel. My name is Crystal and this is Books Forever After, where I sit on my floor and we talk about everything and all things books. Today we were going to be talking about my recent reads that I read in the month of December. I have a little bit of breakdown. I will break it down by what I'm currently reading, how many I read, a little bit of the stats, and then break it down by format. So here we go. Alright, so currently I am reading, as of today, this is like the second week of January, a little behind in the recording, but I am currently reading the third in the Crown of Gilded Bones, the third in the Blood and Ash series by Jennifer L. Almentrout, and then I am also currently reading The Road Not Taken by Sarah McLean. That is my pick of the month for January, for my historical romance author TBR challenge. Alright, so this month I read 11 books. One of those I DNF'd, but I did count it on my Goodreads because I read 80% of it, so that can be controversial or not, but that's the way I'm doing it for me. I read 11 books, which is about 3,569 pages. I will be putting the charts up here. I read majority of them were I think fast paced was 40%. 50% was medium, and then 10% was, or 1% was slow. And then the page numbers, I read 64% was between the 300 and 500 mark, 9% was over 500 pages, and then 27% was less than 300 pages. And as far as genre, I read 9 romances. So as I said, I think that fantasy one was counting as, that's basically fantasy. So 9 romances. I read 3 historical romances, 3 fantasy, 3 contemporary, 1 erotica, 1 young adult, and then 1 was considered a sports romance. And then the format, I read 73% digital, and then 27% print. And then my average star rating was, I had 2 5 stars, 2 4 stars, and 5 3 stars, and 2 2 stars. So very, I want to say uneventful month, but the ones that I did love, I absolutely love. Like, I think they're going to be like all-time favorites going forward. So the one that I DNF'd was For the Wolf by Hannah Whitten. It's the first one in the Word series. It's like a little duology. You can read, I believe, standalone, separate, or whatever. I just could not get into this, and so when I guess you could say, let me go in here. Okay, so I rated this book a 2 stars. I just did not like it. I was pushing through, and I was finding that I just could not. It was making me angry, so to speak. So, if I can, I will post my Goodreads review link down below if I'm able to. Otherwise, you can I do have a Goodreads link for my profile. You can just search there. It just dragged on. The magic was confusing. The plot was like flimsy at best. There was no explanation of the magic, and it was just because of reasons. Like, it didn't really explain, and it was just no explanation of the magic system. And then you finally get the explanation of an event with Red and her sister in the Wild Words that they always kept on talking about and mentioning in the beginning of the book the whole time. They finally mentioning it at like page 225, so basically more than half of the book, and like that just takes way too long for something that is. It was just dumb. It just felt like it was just dumb. It focused way too much on like the repetitiveness of this blood sacrifice, by them cutting their hands and them having to fight back a surge of overgrowth of these like sentinels, which are basically trees. I love quest type fantasies, but nothing was really gained, at least in each of these scenes. So And then also like the romance part of it was very, very clumsy. I'm like, there's no connection between Red and Eamon. I like a good slow burn romance, but this was so slow burn that it was like practically non-existent. And then at like halfway in, I think it's at the 54% mark, you wouldn't even know that the characters would have any connection at all. There's like barely any tension. They barely like spoke to each other. Um, it's I don't know. I just feel like also I don't know. There's no connection with the characters. And I also feel like the author missed out on making this like a one bed trope, and that versus just a forced proximity. They're actually in the room together, so that's just like another thing. So this is focused way too. It's more fantasy than romance, and then, but the fact is like the fantasy part was not strong enough for me. So 2 stars for me for that on that one. This one I rated a 3 stars. Um, that one I find it was okay. It wasn't my favorite. I am gonna read the second one. It's one of those younger YA type things that I think is because of where I'm at as a reader. It's just not like my style anymore. I do find the magic system really intriguing and everything like that. It just feels very just like a YA, the type of YA where it's very surface level. And because it's also fast paced, I don't feel like I get anything from it. So on Kindle Unlimited, I read 4 books in the month of January. I'm sorry, December. The month of December. I read Thin Ice by Cassie Ment. I rated that one a 2 stars. Did not really. It's a short, like 60-page, like novella. Did not like it. I thought it was very, to be honest, very lazy. There's like maybe 3 scenes, and then they was just like explaining. There's this, this steamy scene, and then like they would do it right after. It was like they would do the exact action they were just talking about, or they would just tell us something instead of us showing, and that's. I mean, come on, 60 pages, you couldn't like take a couple sentences to explain. So that's kind of my feedback on that one. This one, The Nice, it's a coach versus athlete romance. She's an ice skater and he is her coach. So that's kind of like, it was lacking for me. And I know this is kind of a popular book for on BookTube, but just for me, it didn't work for me, and it didn't give any kind of substance, or even if there's just one, just like it wasn't even good, so to speak, for me. The second one I read was Wicked Beautiful. It's the first in the Wicked Games by J.T. Geisinger. I actually all I can tell you about this book was it felt very like soap opera to me, and like I mean so soap opera, like the daytime soap opera feeling. It felt so bonkers. And it also just I rated this one 3-star, by the way, and I like this one just rubbed me the wrong way. On these the kind of it's between Victoria Price and Parker Maxwell. She is a life coach and a best-selling author. He's a restaurateur and an infamous playboy, and it's kind of like a second chance romance because he like had like a one night stand with her or something like that, and then years later, he's kind of like a jerk to her, and then she kind of comes back and he actually took her virginity, so to speak, which I hate that term, but and then he dumped her, and she was like a different person, and she comes back as a separate person, and she had some work done, that's why he doesn't recognize her. And then there's some other really bonkers like drama, and like it was not that great. I know this author is very popular on BookTube, and I think this is probably one of her really, really early works, and so I'm just gonna take that with a grain of salt and try some more from her and see if I like just maybe this one was just the wrong one to try out. And then I read Kindle Limited "'Tis the Season for Revenge" by Morgan Elizabeth. I rated this one a 4 stars. This was really, I saw this popping up everywhere that everyone was reading it for Christmas, and I was like, okay, this sounds really interesting. It's kind of like a Legally Blonde inspired romance, and so has a lot of those same kind of feelings as that book, and I really enjoyed it. She gets stumped by her really crappy boyfriend. She's getting ready for a Halloween party to go to at his work, and he breaks up with her right there in the car because she's dressed up as a bunny, and he doesn't think that she is not. He's been trying to make her into what she isn't, and he's just tired of her just being this flimsy blonde kind of person, so to speak. And so she's always, I think the reason why I really didn't, so to speak, yeah. And then so she gets her revenge by going onto this app, and she actually finds out that it's his boss, and she knows it's his boss, that he works at his firm. And so they get set up together. She finds out that she's exactly his type and everything, so she gets revenge by dating him. It turns out though that his boss is actually he's like such a sweet hero, and everything. And so there was a very good theme. I think the reason why this wasn't a 5-star was because I really didn't like the way the main character like talked about herself, and just thought she was so how trying to be this perfect image for her ex and everything like that, and so talking so negatively about herself, which I guess, I don't know, it just, for me, it came a little bit repetitive, and it was just like, you gotta stick up for yourself kind of a thing. So I don't know, just it was good, but it was good though, so I did give it 4 stars. And then the next one I read was From Luke Off with Love by Mariana Zapata. I was kind of disappointed by this one. This was a 3 stars. This is kind of, I forget what the movie is, like a cutting edge almost feeling is what I thought, my expectation going into this. But it's actually, they're both ice skaters. He's not like a hockey player coming in as an ice skater. So they're figure skaters, and they've always just like, it was kind of like a hate to love. Like, she's always hated him. And they kind of just get in this banter back and forth and like bickering. He actually enjoyed it, apparently she doesn't, kind of thing. So it was one of those kind of miscommunications because of that. And what I did like about this book was there was like a lot of focus on like the actual sport of figure skating, so you can learn like their routine and you're with the main character all the time. What didn't work for me was that you're with the female character the whole entire time. You don't get a dual perspective, a dual POV at all. And then also there was like no spice at all. There's like literally at the 96% mark was they finally get together. And you're like, then it was kind of anticlimactic, and it kind of didn't even fit into the story, because there wasn't really much like physical chemistry, so to speak. It kind of felt like they were just best friends, and they're getting, which I get it, you become hate to love, you become friends and they fall in love and that kind of thing, but it just felt a little bit more brother and sister, I guess you could say. But yeah, I think that was just basically where I was at with that. And then I did like find out the sweet things you find out about him, but I don't know, it just felt, because it wasn't his point of view, it's like he did a personality switch in the mid of the book. So, and I will definitely, it wasn't my favorite as much as everybody else's favorite on here on book 2, but I definitely think it just didn't work as much for me. I definitely try something else by Mariana Zapata, but I don't know what book I would try next, because this was a long book, and I guess this author is known for that. Like, I'm okay reading with the book, but you gotta I want to care about the characters and keep it, if I'm being character focused, which I do like, I had to actually like the characters, and they actually had to, I don't know, had to enjoy being with the characters and such with that. And then I also read Let's Play a Game by Lindsay Murray. This is a erotica kind of like smut book. This one I own, I believe. I own this one on my Kindle. So This is one of those that I bought in like just recently, I think, part of the 800 books that was available to buy for free. And so it sounded really interesting. This one is a BDSM kind of club thing where her ex owns this kink club, and he kind of sets her up with a mysterious man kind of person. So they're no longer together, but ever since then, she has just been drifting and not with anybody. And then so, she's a submissive and such. So he sets her up with a mystery person that they meet, and it's somebody within the club. She doesn't know who it is. And then they meet over time. Basically, it just goes on for over a year and such, and she finds out eventually who it is. So the whole point of it was because she was seeking for this connection with somebody, not with just the standard rote of that lifestyle. And she wants more like the connection and trust with the person as well. So, which I found really cool. What was really interesting about this was just the fact of the mystery man person and that kind of, and those kind of encounters. So I don't think I've really read or heard about any kind of books that kind of have that. So I thought that was really creative and very original, because I haven't come across that before. I rated that one a 3-star. It was, and even with that said, it was still just okay. As the experience, it's not something that's going to be a fave or anything, to remember later on. And then I read 4 arcs. I first read the Governess Gamble by Tracy Sumner off of the Book Sirens app, which is a arc app kind of like NetGalley, but it's more focused on, I think I mentioned this previously, it's more focused on selecting arc readers, and they actually have to read that arc within a month. And it's more geared towards independent authors to help them out with the cost of, trying to launch a book and such like that. So I think it's really cool. My first one by her, this is a Christmas romance, a governess romance. And I did enjoy the chemistry and the steam between the main characters, but I just wanted some more, because I have a problem with novellas that, like, it just doesn't, unless it's like an in-between, like a series that I already love, I just want a little extra, content. Novellas really are not my fave, or not something that I tend to enjoy. Because I always want, more pining, longing, the forbiddenness, and the banter. That's what I love about the governess trope, as well as that being a fave of mine, is like that mutual pining kind of a thing. I could also get the feeling that because it's a novella and it's in between the series of the Duchess Society by this author, I felt like I was missing context of the side characters and relationships, and so that made me think when I was reading, it's like, oh, this is a spinoff then, and which it is. So I would recommend probably just reading the Duchess Society and starting with the first one, which I probably will be doing, because even though I didn't like this as much as other historicals, I gave this a 3-star. It definitely at least introduced me to a new historical romance author that I would like to try more from. So yeah. The next one I read was, I guess that was actually not 4 arcs. I read 3 or 2. I read 2 arcs, sorry. And then the next one that I read was Seducates by Joanna Shupe. This is just released this month. I think it's going to be releasing January 21st or 24th, something like that. Or 31st. Sometime this month. This one, it releases January 24th in this month. This is the 4th and final book from the Fifth Avenue Rebel series. I gave this a 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. This is to get Duke's story along as Nellie's story. And this is a going over like the year-long progression from book 1 at Maddie's house, Maddie's house with the house party. I really like this book. We do learn that like the Duke has a little bit of a rough side. in the bedroom. And he also struggles with the health condition that he only reveals to Nellie. I don't want to put what the health condition is because I don't want to, that would be a spoiler. Nellie is an independent woman, as we know, that we'll learn from the beginning of this book. She's ahead of her time. So she's an advocate. We learn more about like her independence and what she stands for in this book. She is an advocate for women's rights, especially them overcoming their ignorance in regards to their sexual health. Because as you know, living in a patriarchal society, there's a lot of focus on making sure that women are ignorant of their own education of their own bodies, and the control and I want to say the allowing them to have more control over their bodies and with, you know, being forced into pregnancy and things like that. So this kind of showcases a lot of the issues that are paralleling with what we were seeing today. Some things that didn't work for me as much is I would have liked more connection or chemistry between Nellie and Lockwood. It felt like it was relying too heavily on the brief interactions, you know, from the previous books as context for their relationship. I was like, perhaps if we could see more detailed interaction and tension of their and the tension from their interactions and the progression from the other books. I think the romance would have been a little bit more believable and a bit more impactful for me. Although the beginning did start out really very strong and steamy and mysterious, it just fell flat for me because it felt like they fell too fast, and then their chemistry kind of fell flat midway through. And then you also didn't really get an explanation of his condition and why, like what was the cause of his condition, even in the epilogue. And that's when they mentioned, you know, the surgery that they were able to resolve, and it just felt like the surgery, he had surgery and it fixed it. Which is kind of frustrating because his condition was like one of the major reasons as to why like Nellie held back for so long in the book. That was one of their conflicts during the book. Okay, well, and yeah, so all this said though, I still recommend that you pick up this book as it was still a really fun read. And I also really, one thing to note is I really loved Nellie's cousin. I forget his name. He's like the leader of like this gang, the Irish gang. And then her Aunt Ree, I want to say Aunt Ree, I can't remember how you pronounce your name. So yeah. So there is a couple trigger warning, well, one trigger warning. It's just like a very small scene, but, and with a side character, but just as a trigger warning for domestic abuse. And this has the tropes of it's in the golden age, it's a Duke romance, hate to love, and there is chronic illness rep because of the Duke's health condition. Alright, and then before I read The Duke Gets Even, I read The Bride Goes Rogue. I do not have the physical copy of this because I basically checked it out from my library. I gave that one a 5 stars. I absolutely loved that book. I think that was like my favorite one out of the series. And I think that's because, I don't know, and I've heard this before, and maybe this is going to be true for me as well with this author. Sorry, let me fix you. I think that this author is probably going to be like one of those where I'm not going to love everything by her. It's going to be like a hit or miss sometimes. So going into that, knowing that, I can like manage my expectations, because this was the first like books I've read by this author, and I read the series. Was the first one I read. So yeah, I love The Bride Goes Rogue. I literally think it's probably going to be one of my like top favorite historical romances going forward. This one follows Catherine Delafield and Preston Clark, and he's kind of like a self-made man and things like that. So what happened is she is asking her father about this arranged engagement that Preston's father and her father kind of arranged. She's asking her dad about it, and so she goes to and he tells her, well, do you have to go to the office and go talk to your intended or whatever. And so she goes and talks to Preston Clark at his office, and he basically tells her, like, I didn't agree to this and I'm not honoring this. I never agreed to this engagement. She is just shocked and everything, and she just can't believe it. But then she's like, you know what? I'm going to get mine, because I'm like, she was doing all she can to try to be the best, bride, wife to come, and preparing for it. She's been staying, true and things like that. And so she decides and goes off with Ellie to go to I forget what it's called, but some sort of like French party where gets a little rowdy kind of a thing. And so they have a kind of first, encounter there, and have an encounter there, and it was like really interesting. So, and it goes on from there. I really like those kind of books. I think that's what really works for me, is the fact that there's all these like little illicit rendezvous all throughout it and that kind of thing, and it kind of like shows that progression. So I really like that, and I really loved getting to read that in this book as well. So I wish that there was more solo romances like involved with that, especially as these like taboo kind of places or events and things like that. So I thought that was really, really cool. Oh yeah, it was at a masquerade, so that's why they were able to be together. He didn't know. He didn't know it was her. All right. And right, so that's why I checked out the library. And then I also checked out on the Libby app the ebook, The Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin, and it got itself knocked up there. It's a 5 stars. I got it knocked. It's like top tier, top favorite, at least top 5 of 2022. I loved it. It's a pirate romance. It is between she is a pirate captain, and between kind of like a triangle, but kind of not. So I really, really loved it. Her ex cheats on her and all that like tension and things like that. And he's been searching for her for 2 years, and they get, and then she was able to kind of run away from him. And then she meets this Commodore, I forget his name. I'm really not explaining this very well. Like a pirate hunter kind of a person. And then she gets captured by him, and then they kind of fall in love and things like that. So one thing to note, this book is a dark romance, super dark. There is some, check the trigger warnings, but it was just so good. There was pining, oh my gosh, like it makes your heart hurt, like all the tension, like in the beginning of it, how she's feeling on, the hurt that her ex did to her. Not with her ex, because they're still married. So her husband, still her husband. So he, and then you find some secret reveals and things like that. So everything kind of like resolved. But there's all this, there's adventure. There's, because they're searching for some sort. I think they're searching for like a treasure or something like that. Something that not from her dad. Can't remember the details. I'm so horrible at this, but it was just so good. There's adventure, there's tension, there's steamy times. It's dark. It was just, and longing and pining. Oh, it's just so good, so good. The one thing that I wish it did have, like just like any other of my romances, is I wish it had the dual POV. Because I believe most of this was in the female main character's view. So you don't really get to see another person's view, which actually is typical in historical romances. You do get to see the other person's view, but at the same time, I understand maybe why the author decided not to, because it might have spoiled some of the reveals later on in the book. Alright, well that is all the books that I read in the month of December, and let me know if you read any of these books. Definitely the 2 favorites from this month is The Bride Goes Rogue and The Sea of Ruin. And yeah, that will be it. So please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and don't forget to hit that notification bell, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.